Alrighty. It is a Monday, which means we have to discuss HardRight, HardLeft, the thing that I got the most right last week, and the thing that I got the most wrong last week. And with my HardRight, I'm not normally a ratings guy, but they do matter. And the NBA had a big dip in their week 1 ratings. Fans, we are all spoiled. We have so much at our disposal. This is one of the coolest days in sports if you're listening live. There's NHL games, there's NBA games, World Series Game 3, Monday Night Football. It's one of the coolest days in sports, the sports equinox, I believe is what they call it, when there's all four major sports leagues are going at the same time. And the NBA, we talked about this with Will, I talked about this with Tony. The NBA did a poor job broadcasting and advertising this season. They did a poor job promoting its young talent. They did a poor job just getting people excited to watch professional basketball. And it doubled down when not only did they do a poor job doing it, the stars they are currently relying on, a Kawhi who's always hurt, a Joel Embiid who's on injury management, who none of us have ever heard before. I understand we didn't know load management prior to injury management. Injury management sounds even worse somehow than load management. The NBA, and I get it. Oh, well, it's the World Series is going on. Oh, there's NFL football. That's always been their case for the opening week of the season. And why do they have even lower numbers? Because the stars that they rely on, the old guard of stars, Steph, KD, LeBron, we're just not checking for those guys, and they can't carry you forever. We know the Warriors aren't as good as they've been. We know the Lakers aren't as good as they've been. The Suns are kind of hit and miss on people's actual expectations for them. The current stars, people just aren't that interested in. A Jokic, a Tatum, a Luka. Again, these European guys, they're out of the country during the offseason. The NBA, and Adam Silver specifically, at some point, you got to start having some pushback on who your star players are and what you're demanding out of them. Because this league, it can't survive on Joel Embiid being one of the faces of your league. It can't survive on Jokic. And they're both great, by the way. Jokic is a phenomenal all-time great player, 3-time MVP and NBA champion. Joel Embiid has some of the best footwork and skill set from a 7-foot player that we've ever seen in the NBA. But the reality is, when they're not easy to promote, when they're not on commercials, hell, Jokic isn't even in the country. This is the problem that the NBA is going to continue to face. Again, there's no huge star in LA. The Celtics were another huge brand. Tatum, kind of, but it's almost more of Tony brought this up. On Twitter, Jason Tatum is very relevant. Outside of Twitter, a lot less so. He's very quiet. He's very to himself. He's not the most marketable guy despite being with that franchise. The New York Knicks. Well, look at who the Knicks have. It's a bunch of the Villanova guys. And because they've got their own podcast, they don't want to be a part of the generic regular media cycle that's in New York. They want to put out their own stories, their own storylines, their own narratives. They're not these huge over-the-top personalities. Jalen Brunson's pretty much to himself besides the podcast. Josh Hart pretty much to himself besides the podcast. Karl Anthony Towns, who again, a guy who the average fan's not going to be that excited for because Cat, who was the number 1 overall pick, has not blossomed into this guy that most people would say is quote-unquote deserving of the number 1 overall pick status. The NBA has a real problem, and I'm going to beat this drum the same way I did for baseball. You have talent. You have an Anthony Edwards. You have an SGA. You still have Jokic, who was in his prime. You have these guys. You have still a Zion, who, say what you want about his prime and his career's gone to, is still a drawing, as someone who can draw names, can get people to a TV, and get people to want to watch basketball. You have a Luka. You have so much talent. You need to take advantage of this. This is why the NFL is king, and the NFL, even though their product, there's a really strong argument. I said this last week and I'll say it again. There's a really strong argument. The NFL's product is worse than Major League Baseball's product, is worse than the NBA's product. And the NBA is probably a toss-up. But these guys who you can't market correctly. Also, this play style, this is what I was banging on this last week too. Not every team can be a bunch of 3-point shooting guys because it just looks like shoot around. Jokic, the best center in the NBA. Why is he shooting 7 threes? I understand he can shoot, but why is he out there taking 7 threes a game? I'm not trying to sound like the old man, but we need to have nuance in the game of basketball. There needs to be, say what you want about the early 2000s, but we needed a team like the Spurs who played a certain way. We needed a team like the Lakers who played a certain way. We needed a team like the Mavericks who played a certain way. The Phoenix Suns. Like, not everybody can just be copycat, copy, paste, do the exact same thing everybody can. Not everybody's the Golden State Warriors with a Steph, Clay, and KD where they could justify shooting 30, 43s. We need nuance. We need more marketable stars. It's what I love. Again, we started the show off with the Detroit Lions. I love what the Lions are doing. The Lions said, fuck you, we don't need to pass. We can still score 50 points, even if our quarterback only throws 15 times in a game. Even if I'm not the biggest Gobert fan. I like what Minnesota does with Ant, Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle. They play differently than other teams because they realize these are what our stars do and this is what they do well. This copycat idea of everybody shoot threes, everybody's taking time off for load or injury management, like non-marketable stars. The NBA, again, in the NBA, we have been blessed, and also the NBA has been almost just led astray by the fact of you've had these bigger than life stars who have all overlapped with each other. You had Magic, you had Bird, you had Shaq, you had Magic, Bird, then Jordan, then Shaq, then Kobe, then LeBron, and that is scaled almost 40 plus years of professional basketball, over 40 plus years of professional basketball. And that has made the NBA think, oh, we are bigger and better than what we are because we have these bigger than life personalities. But guess what? There's only one Magic. There's only one Bron. There's only one Kobe. There's only one Shaq. These guys do not keep coming down the pipeline. At some point that stops. There's not a current player who has the personality or is big as Shaq in his prime, a Kobe, a LeBron. Like, that just does not exist currently. So now, NBA, it's your turn. You need to figure it out. And in the midst of all that, you also had a Yao Ming who brought over an entire country with him. Like, the NBA ratings, and say what you want. Again, this is not just old guy bitching. This is the reality of a sport that I love. This is the reality of a sport that I love, struggling with ratings, viewership, getting more kids to play. Like, man. And NBA, and here's the thing. And for the players, to Joel Embiid's of the world, to the other guys, Kawhi, you guys are going to bleep it up for everyone's contracts. Because Joel Embiid just signed a 3 years, $191 million? And he's going to play 50 games, 40 games. At some point, owners are going to get sick and tired of paying all that money and only showing up to work half the time. At some point in time, owners are going to get sick of that shit. And all this money that you guys have made over these last 5 to 10 years with collective bargaining agreements and all the ratings increase, that because of a LeBron and a Steph and the final ratings and the way the game is marketed internationally, that's going to start to go away. They keep showing all these numbers about the NBA salary cap, how it's going to go up, 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 and how Luka's going to be the first player ever to start making $70, $80 million a year, or Wembanyama's going to make $90 million a year. That's not going to happen if these guys don't start playing, if these guys don't start improving the product on the floor. There is not a revolutionary superstar coming in to save the NBA. Well, that's HardRight. Oh my gosh. Sorry, that's not what I'm really passionate about. HardLeft in this one, I don't even think I'm necessarily wrong, just in terms of what happened on Sunday, but I think Sunday was the first time I thought this is actually a big issue, which the HardLeft is. I think I'm done defending John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh, Tony has been telling me for the last several weeks, has never been a great coach. He's just been a good coach, but a message that's dying out because he's been there for so long. And I've given some pushback on that. I do think John, in my opinion, mainly because of his success, has always been he's a really good head coach. And then obviously all these guys need players, right? Like John Harbaugh inherited Ray Lewis. He inherited Ed Reed. He got a young Joe Flacco who turned into a great quarterback. But I was watching the game on Sunday and I'm like, look, man, I'm all for being creative, especially in the goal line. Andy Reid has made that really popular. All these reverse gadget plays that specifically he's been able to pull off. But the reality is, why are we doing a direct snap to Derrick Henry on fourth down? The most dangerous, most effective play of the entire NFL season has been Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry RPO. You put it in the two guys who both have acclaimed MVP or in that top 5 MVP voting based on the way that they have played, and they combine for the most dangerous play in football. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry RPO. It has been the most effective play across the league all year. And you just take it out of Lamar's hands. You don't even fake it. You don't even give him the chance to make it seem like he could be involved in the play. You just totally remove him. Like, at some point, Tony believes it's a John wants to prove how smart he is. Prove you're smart by saying, hey, I know the thing they can't stop, and I'm going to keep doing this until they're forced to stop it. Like, I thought the Ravens were the best team in football because I thought the combination of Lamar, Derrick Henry, the way they've been running the ball, that felt like the most unstoppable thing going. Little did I know, the most unstoppable running game, even though Baltimore is clearly the most talented running team between those two, Detroit is the best running team because Detroit just doesn't stop. Dan Campbell he doesn't care how many times you run it, what's the score of the game, he is going to keep doing it. He understands what he has with an offensive line. He understands what he has with running backs. He understands what he has with Jared Goff. And he continues to do this because he says, hey, they can't stop me. So the actual smart thing to do is the thing they can't stop. And I'm going to keep doing that until anyone finds some inconceivable way to stop me. Like, again, John Harbaugh, I've defended as a really good head coach. He's got the resume, but the reality is in 2024, I'm done defending John Harbaugh. I'm sorry. Some of those are indefensible. The losses that they have, it's not just like every team's going to lose games. We'll wrap up here. Every team's going to lose games. That's fine. That's understandable. But when you lose and you lose the same way, and it feels the same after all of your losses, that's when you start to point out what the problem is. Almost all of the Ravens' losses feel like they are on John Harbaugh. They feel like they are a coach's loss. It's not like they lose. It'd be different if they lose and Lamar just goes out there and throws 2 or 3 interceptions, or Derrick Henry fumbles, or the receivers can't catch. Then you could put that on the players. But when all of your losses feel like you had the better roster, you were more talented, you should have clearly won the game, and your coach, whether it's some combination of Harbaugh, Monken, which he's got to eat because that's his hire. They wanted to get rid of Greg Roman a few years ago. That's on him. And again, I've been a John Harbaugh defender. Can't do it no more. There's no excuse for losing that game, win the 6th straight. And now I'm even more irritated because they're about to play Denver. And now Baltimore's pissed because they're going to be coming off a loss that they feel like, and they know they shouldn't have lost that game. And now they're about to play the Broncos, and they're playing in Baltimore, and they're going to be pissed. And now I got to watch people try to tackle a pissed off Derrick Henry, which just sounds awful. So thanks, John Harbaugh, for not only messing up the Ravens weekend, for probably fucking up my next weekend.